Yeah, they're a mistake. We're getting a bad batch. Well, there's no.
You know how to sell a product, believe me.
Yeah. There were about 18 of them about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Seem to be doing a good job. Yeah, they're not bad.
You can break a glass panel with them.
That's why I brought them. So let's roll. It's at 6 o'clock, so let us call this meeting to order. Can we do a roll call, please?
We can do a roll call. Chair Kearney, are you here? Let's go the opposite way. Mr. Wood, are you here?
I'm here.
Ms. Sachdiva, you appear to be here. Mr. Harder,
Present.
he's here. Mr. Basiji,
Here.
here. Mr. Stewart, I'm here. Mr. Gickus.
I'm here.
All right, we are all present and accounted for. That's 7 of 7 voting members. So we have a quorum.
And we have a member of the public.
Yes, we have
Alston.
Bill Ralston.
I'm
We
also,
have Lisa.
I'm also a member of the Environmental Initiative.
Okay. And Melissa is here.
Okay, so that's items 1 and 2. Number 3, public comment on subjects that are not on the agenda. So persons wishing to address the committee on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the committee is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. So there are 4 people here who are not members, 1 legitimate member of the public. One illegitimate member of the public.
All right.
Any comments?
I'm an associate
You're
here.
an associate and I just don't have you on the list. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
I am, especially
Yeah.
voted in, I think, last time.
That's right. Okay. This is the problem with having a template that's out of
So
date.
Bill, do you have any questions or comments or?
Well, I guess just a comment in terms of why I'm here. On the Environmental Initiatives Committee, I just joined it, and one of the issues I raised was about dealing with the effects of climate change and really the adaptation needs of the town. I joined in March, and that's just when we had the big storm and effect of climate change, and I was wondering kind of what the effect was on the town and how it would handle such things as they happen in the future. And essentially, the response was basically no one was thinking that was a big deal in a sense, or didn't know what deal it was. And even though a lot of people lost power and a lot of people had risk for different things. And so I raised the issue that maybe the Environmental Initiatives Committee really should be doing something about trying to understand the needs of the public in terms of if this is happening more often, which is what brings the time. And so they basically said as a committee that might maybe better, with the emergency preparedness response committee. So mostly part of the issue is about how do you respond when all the power goes out, and what is that, whatever emergency might have happened at that point, maybe it should be handled by the committee. So that's kind of why I'm here, is just basically to start a discussion about that sort of item, whether or not there are issues related to that would be better off under this committee. And perhaps I can help encourage that. But that's the main reason for I think there's a big need there. Actually, I think there's a huge public relations or communications issue with respect to emergencies like we just had. As for myself, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know that there's certain things existed that I might be able to take advantage of in the town or in the community. So, and I thought maybe other people are in the same situation as me. Perhaps it's something that maybe the city might have a role in helping to deal with this. So that's kind of all the background a little bit about why I'm here. And so I'm here to listen also about the issues that, because I think they might overlap quite a bit in some of the things that you're doing.
It's great and welcome. We're really pleased that you joined us. So Bill and I exchanged some documents. I sent Bill the hazard mitigation documents both from the town and from the county, the EOP, try to give him a sense of the concerns, the environmental related or climate and weather related concerns in those documents. And there's this shocking, paucity of recognition that power might go out, which sort of surprised me. And that was where you and I started. So, and for someone who lives up on Moody, we had at least 7 days without power in this last storm cycle. So I suspect that, I'm not sure which bucket it goes into, weather or climate. I'm pretty sure that we are affecting the climate and weather is getting much more unpredictable. And there's also a good deal of science around that too that you can discuss. So I would encourage you to, join the committee, actually either as a full or associate member, having considered what it is that we do here. One of the things that you mentioned is communications, which is super important. So sitting across from you is Amita, and so she leads our outreach committee, which you and I also discussed, which is just so super important in terms of getting messages to people. And we're going to hear tonight from Associate Member Gilmore, who's been working really hard with Neil, who is not here, but I think is going to join at some
He
point.
should be joining, say what.
And Sam, who are members of the former Emergency Communications Committee. And what they're trying to do is organize, the town around a set of requirements for emergency communications infrastructure. So welcome. Please consider, participating. And we hope that you will ask whatever questions you have. Feel free. Are there any other public comments or questions? Melissa, I guess you're on the agenda, so you don't need to ask your questions as a member of the public. So why don't I move to the next item, which is remarks from the chair. I just had a lot of remarks, so why don't I not have any more? Other than we are going to have, ostensibly, we're supposed to have elections tonight for the chairman, vice chair, chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary. And the town resolution on standing committees also requires that we take a look at our subcommittees. If we have a list of them, we'll go through them. So those are two important ministerial things that we got to knock off tonight, in addition to the important work that we're going to hear from David Gilmore and from Neil, from each of them. So the next item on the agenda is to review and potentially approve the minutes from the prior meeting. I reviewed them. I love them. I would move that they be adopted unless anyone has.
I would second that.
I've never heard such a strong.
I read them twice.
Wow, you guys are so kind. Okay, so
I don't know if that's his best.
It's not his best, but I love it.
I'm not sure.
Like a blue period.
The blue period is better.
Ben, you seconded.
I think.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote. Chair.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Gikas.
Aye.
Stewart, aye. Mr. Resigi.
Aye.
Mr. Harder.
Aye.
Ms. Sachdeva.
Aye.
Mr. Wood.
Aye.
Okay, they pass.
Oh, okay, so let's move to the next item quickly, and that is election. So as chair who has the mic, I would like to nominate as secretary Dave Stewart.
Can I give a short campaign speech?
Will it be as good as your minutes?
Shorter.
Would you like to make a?
Only that if anyone else would like this job, I'd be happy to hand it off.
I think that's going to be a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Nobody can hold a hand counter with you. That's just.
I agree with that.
We can thank the video recordings because I go through slowly. So this meeting for you guys is just 2 hours. For me, it's 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I accept your nomination.
okay, excellent. So can we have a roll call vote on that?
We have to close nominations.
We're just gonna, yeah, unless someone has another nomination. You're right.
No, I moved to close the nominations.
I second that. We have to vote on that?
I think the ritual.
Don't make motions like that. It's just that much more Xing I have to put on the event. All right, so nominate Stewart.
Yep.
Mr. Kearney, I think you're an
Aye.
aye. The Exco. Mr. Gikas,
I'm an aye.
Mr. Stewart, I'm an aye, or maybe I should abstain because I have a vested interest. Mr. Masici.
Fine, which way?
Exactly.
Mr. Harder,
Aye.
Ms. Sachdeva,
Hi.
Mr. Wood.
Aye.
All right, that passes with 6 out of 7.
Excellent. And so I would like to nominate as vice chairperson Anita, thanking Ben for his work over the last year, but I would love to see you step into that role. Do we have a second? for
I will second that.
Ben, thank you.
I think both, but not.
Okay. No speech? You don't need one.
The only speech I have is, I'm very glad to be here. with all of you.
Awesome.
So, thank you.
Fantastic. It's a great team. Do you wanna roll through the roll?
I will. Mr. Kearney.
Yes.
Mr. Gikas.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart, yes. Mr. Masici.
Yes. Enthusiastic.
Sorry, I didn't even hear it. Mr. Harder,
Yes.
Ms. Sachdeva.
Of course.
Yeah, you can say it.
Hi.
Vote. Mr. Wood.
Yes.
All right. Again, unanimous.
And there's one last position that needs to be voted on tonight, and honestly, I am A-okay with anyone doing this other than me, so I'm not gonna nominate myself.
That's my campaign speech.
I was so good that I figured I'd reprise it. So,
I moved that we nominate Kearney for this. chair.
I'll second that.
I want my brownie back,
Not in the form it's in.
not in this current state.
And I seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Kearney.
No,
No. Okay. Mr. Gikas.
Yes.
I think you're gonna lose this one. Mr. Stewart, yes. Mr. Masici.
Yes.
Mr. Harder.
Yes.
Ms. Sachdeva.
Sorry, a very strong eye.
All right, Mr. Wood.
Aye.
All right, that also passes with 6 out of 7.
well, thank you. So we have a new set of officers for the committee. That's great. Let's move to the next item, which is 7. And that is.
Information. When did they start? This meeting or next meeting?
I don't know the answer to that question. Does it depend?
I don't think it really
Will it-
mattered
will it-
because
Yeah,
the two.
Yeah.
That are running.
Yeah, given that unless he dies halfway through the meeting, takes over.
Or would it be him? Or I mean, would it be her or?
It's a good question, but let's
I'm
wait
pretty
for
sure they
somebody to
take over
die.
immediately.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think.
If you want us to pull a coup right now.
Oh my God.
What's that night?
You brought brownie.
Bring this up to
The
Deborah.
brownies have a certain effect. They will.
That's good to know.
Oh, you didn't ask.
I had no idea how exciting a meeting this was.
That was so much fun.
Okay, so may we hear from our town engineer on item 7?
Hi,
Melissa,
everyone.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Melissa. I'm one of the engineers with the town of Los Altos Hills, and I'm working on the Heritage House upgrade project. So I had some questions for the committee. The first one is, is it possible to appoint, one or two of you to our ad hoc for like Heritage House updates?
Here you go.
We have vice.
He's got a
Yeah,
chair now.
Yes.
See, it works.
That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
secretary.
What would the purpose of this be?
So the purpose would be to be able to update some committee members and make decisions alongside the history committee. Because your committee as well as the history committee are the main committees that are providing input on this upgrade. And currently we meet weekly as needed on Wednesday at 3 p.m.
So you're looking for ongoing interaction and support without having to get the whole committee involved, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And somebody who knows about the equipment that we would like to put in the Heritage House.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, there's only a few members that fit that description.
I nominate Neil.
Wait, Neil's not on the committee, nor is he here, poor guy.
He is an associate member on the committee, and he's supposed to be here to talk about this stuff. today.
Oh, I see.
See what happens when you don't show up.
Alternatively, it would be Sam.
All the people.
So while you stepped out, Melissa asked if we could appoint somebody to sit in on her every Wednesday as called 3 p.m. ad hoc meeting on house remodel. So we wouldn't have to go through the.
Oh, so that person can
piece of it, yeah, somebody who's actually knowledgeable rather than the other 6 or 7 of us who.
So that's.
I've worked in that room maybe half an hour, so.
No, it needs to be Neil. He's the one who really knows where the stuff goes.
Okay.
I know that one of the things that I need to do is make sure the radios are working. I got my service monitor back so I can now check them finally. And I just need to find a time where I can come down. It isn't going to be a problem.
So Melissa, I think we're nominating Neil and Abstentia and Sam as backup. And if you have difficulty getting a hold of them, come back to Terry or me.
Okay,
Or
are they officially appointed? Does that make it official? I'm sorry, I'm new to this appointing to ad hocs.
yeah, I don't,
It's official.
yeah.
Great, okay. So that was the first item of business. The second one was, I'm not sure how many documents the Emergency Preparedness Committee has in the Heritage House, but we would like to start boxing those documents up and labeling them. So if we could get kind of a schedule as to how and when that could happen, that would be great. I think we would be able to provide boxes for you to be able to box up all of your documents that you would need or like to keep.
Okay.
I know nothing about the documents. That's Neil.
Yeah, that's a Neil issue.
Can I ask, can I answer that question with a different question? Did you get a chance to talk to Drew Anderson yet?
I have not spoken with Drew. I wanted to kind of get my questions out there and just get a feel if she was the right person to speak to based on my questions. Would she be for the documents?
Yeah, Drew was chair or co-chair of the ECC for the last, I don't know how many years, 6, 8, something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
So, she was the ECC lead for a long, long time, and she was on the ECC for decades, I think. So yeah, she would definitely be a good person to chat up about that stuff.
Okay.
I guess
Great.
you would ask Neil,
Yeah.
Melissa, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd drive Neil first, and if you can't wrestle him to the ground, get in touch with Dave or me, and we'll
Twist
help
his arm
that
as
out.
necessary.
The other person who knows about this stuff is Duncan McMillan.
Yeah.
Because he managed the inventory of the stuff, the equipment that was checked out. And he knew where a lot of the stuff was and worked down there quite a bit. Much more than I did, by the way.
Right. And we've been working with Duncan sort of behind the scenes.
Okay.
We just don't want to throw away or, get rid of something that you would need or want or that's important. And we're trying to, just get that done prior to a contractor going in there and starting to tear stuff up. So getting that done ahead of time would be great. And then the last question I had was, when I met with the three gentlemen and we did a walkthrough of the Heritage House, we discussed testing the equipment to see what works and what doesn't work. Is there potential on getting a schedule for that? Or I don't know if that's been started. Would that also be a Neil question?
I think so. Wasn't Neil one of the people you did the walkthrough with?
Yes, Neil, Bill, and Sam.
Yeah, and I would be doing some of that testing because I have a service monitor that we can use to go through and check the radios.
So Melissa, when do you want demolition to start?
So we don't know yet. We're kind of up in the air. Our grant that we had received is kind of shifting because we realized there was a requirement that we don't meet. Well, the county let us know there was a requirement after they told us that we had the grant, which was unfortunate, that a certain amount of our population needed to be low to moderate income, which I don't know why they thought we would qualify with that requirement, but here we are. So we're trying to work with the county to recover those funds. And different funding has different requirements, so we're not really sure kind of in which direction we're going. We're actively, working towards that, but these are activities that can really be done in the meantime,
Yeah.
So, it's not super urgent as of now, but, it'd be great if we could get it done in July, beginning of August.
Okay. And when do you need all the equipment out? I presume you do need it all out?
Yes, that I can give you an update. As of now, I don't really know.
Okay.
I think that when we get close to having our building permit, I'd be closer to giving you an update.
Neil is just about ready to sign on, so the next next item on the agenda is going to take a little while. Melissa, I don't want to hold you over unnecessarily. I told Neil that he's been assigned some tasks in absentia that might inspire him to join more rapidly, but maybe not. If you want to stay online, Neil should be joining us, probably during the next agenda item, which I don't want to interrupt. Is that okay?
Yeah, so when would we discuss after your next agenda item?
After the next agenda item is, we could pick back up your questions for one, excuse me, for someone to attend your meetings, two, to understand what those documents are. Those are the two big ones for him.
Okay. Yes,
Then
so
otherwise you're gonna have to chase Dave or me down, so.
to get it done. So if he's officially appointed to the ad hoc meeting, then we can meet next week with him, correct? Or I can meet with him next week in person?
Yes. Assuming that he's available.
Yeah, really would like to confirm that he is available.
So that's the reason it'd be nice to just have that chat with him. If you could stay online.
Yes, that's not a problem for me. So then I will stay online.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, that's a good segue. Number 2 on Melissa's list were documents, and that's one of the use cases that we have. Documents that will allow us to understand who to contact, whom, when. So what I'd like to do is transition to the next action agenda item, which is the working group's report. So without saying more, can I just turn it over to you, Dave?
Certainly. To quickly summarize what I hope we can do today, it's refresh ourselves about what the work that our little subcommittee did and what recommendations we made. We at the last meeting went through those in some detail and some technical detail. We can talk through them again, either in form or in content. And I will very quickly summarize them just to remind everybody what's there, to refresh our memories. That's sort of part A. Part B, and the new part, is that was also distributed with the agenda, is more of a packaging sort of discussion, which is how we might take these recommendations for infrastructure and turn them into a resolution that the council could act on that would then give us sort of a framework and a foundation to have lots of different plans, roadmaps, and future work unfold from there in a way that all reference the same core that thought process at the beginning. Is that intelligible as an agenda item?
Makes a lot of sense. And you also modified the slides a little bit too. They're new.
Not since the last meeting, to my knowledge.
Were there additional slides?
No, there may have been some backup slides that were included that were right. So just to let me quickly what I'm now going to do is actually review for you though what is the process part of this little recommendation, which explains what we did. So the goal was to identify the communications infrastructure that the town needed for an emergency as broadly as possible in a zero-based way without reference to anything that might exist today or not. To think and the method we used to do that was to first get together and try to identify every single use case we could think of. Who needs to speak to whom, in what kind of an emergency, using what is basically what it boils down to. Endless conversations that actually had an end about all those use cases. That included the public, that included the EOC and staff, the town staff, volunteers, first responders, the entire chain of emergency command up through county and to state and beyond. And we took all those use cases, thought about what they might need to use to communicate, and then flipped the whole thing. So we basically came up with infrastructure proposals and then nestled all the use cases back inside the infrastructure proposal. So in each of these 6 slides for infrastructure, there are the use cases that it's supposed to support. It's sort of like it's the gizmo, and this is the work that gets done with the gizmo. So, and there was a lot of back and forth of regrouping and thinking, well, would this really work with that? And what about different levels of an emergency? We went through that process. The result was 6 slides that we think of in 3 groups. One is about the EOC itself. What does the EOC need? It's the center of emergency management. It is the communications hub, obviously. So its infrastructure is obviously at the heart of this whole thought process. The second was about radio communication. Radio communication is needed that is to enable various set of use cases that really doesn't live in the EOC but needs to surround it. And then the third was the public. Within the first group, there were 3 sort of general areas. The overwhelmingly most significant one, which is of no surprise, is the EOC needs to talk to the internet, because the internet in some form is the way the EOC connects to the chain of command and in emergency management up through the county and many other players. And so we spent a lot of time trying to come up with the detailed requirements of what internet access for the EOC needs to look like. Since the EOC is physically in these buildings that we're occupying, that amounts to recommendations about the internet infrastructure for these buildings, which of course is something that town and staff are typically tasked with and work. So think of these as a set of extra emergency related requirements that could overlay into an existing IT plan for the town. And that's what that first slide is. The second one is what Terry mentioned is documents. It's the lowest tech thing you can imagine. Think of a 3-ring binder hanging from a chain on a water cooler, containing updated information about how anybody in the EOC could get to any of the public infrastructure operators. The PG&E, cell providers, water, sewer, Caltrans, ISPs, those people. Because all of those people, all those agencies will be involved and will be affected by emergencies and will be key players in recovering from emergencies. And the third one was always almost a little thing for completeness, the idea that there may be a need, even with all that hardened internet access, and even though the way to first responders is typically up through the county and over, we may need direct first responder radio access infrastructure as well. So that's the 3 things that focus on the EOC. The second area was radio communications, and probably the big implicit strategy decision is to double down and continue a large role for volunteers in the overall emergency planning in the form of CERT and in the form of ham radio people that are able to provide radio communications to support CERT and field communications. So field radio communications is the first slide. And even though there's some very exciting pilot programs go on using cell phones and essentially someday making amateur radio in the form we know today really not needed, we don't think we're quite there yet to take that plunge, but we are hopeful that some of those will yield fruit maybe in the near term. They're included in here in the upward, it's growing. Anyway, so that is a continuation of the regime that we currently have and have had for some time. The second is also a radio communications infrastructure link, but it's focused on field communications, but on links between that are the ultimate fallback links if there's no internet, between the ARC and the EOC and between here and county, where we also need radio. So those are the 2 radio slides. That's the second category. The third and final category, a single slide, but a potentially massive project or series of projects, is the issue of public communications. That means both inbound and outbound communications to residents of the town and others in an emergency. And essentially, the recommendation is to have a website which is dedicated to use only in emergencies. Probably not one that we built or designed ourselves, but use the framework that we might find to do that did lots of different kinds of jobs about the public. So that is the package of infrastructure recommendations. Let me pause and ask if there's any questions, feedback, anything missing, anything wrong. How do we feel about that set? Is it comprehensive? And before I do that, thanks to Neil and Dave and Sam, who sat for a long, long time working through each and every one of these things in detail. I am really mostly the typewriter. Thoughts? What's missing? What do we not do? Is this intelligible? Does it make sense? Can everyone understand it?
My big question is for our council liaison, and it really, so I misunderstood the extra use cases that were in the back. I mean, I just don't think I saw those last time. But the first slides are the same as they were last time.
That's correct.
Made a ton of sense to me last month, and they still make sense to me now. It doesn't sound like there are a lot of questions about that. The real issue then is this the kind of format for requirements that we can pass to the town to pass to staff? Or is there some other format that would make more sense?
And toward that end, there is a document that I hope you all saw, which captures, which has been a group project to put together. I guess, Lisa, it would really be the first time you've seen it, we've talked about it, but mostly to you, but to anybody, does this feel like the way we should carry this work forward? Or is there some completely different thing or a modification of this? Or?
Right, the cover sheet really isn't the requirements though, right? So the 2 pieces would be, is the cover sheet the right format in the right vehicle to transfer this to the town council? And then underlying that are the substantive requirements that have been gone into. Are those also in a format that you think would be useful to staff, or should we talk to staff and maybe rethink it?
After I, not to interrupt the answer to your
Yeah.
question, forgive me, but in thinking about that myself, implicitly, I thought that it probably was a bridge too far to try to get into the substance of the reasoning behind these decisions in the council meeting itself. And
Right.
so it felt to me like the right kind of paradigm was, here's a bucket of things from the committee, then pass through EPRC that we believe should be the anchor. Could we bless this? And then set forth a process where the default will be, we'll do it, working together, a workload permitting, budget permitting. And to the extent that these requirements cannot be met, we'll just talk more and come up with a plan. I mean, that's essentially what this document says with background information. Does that feel like the right thing?
Yeah, my idea for this going forward is that we have a council meeting in August, and we would present the idea that this is what we're trying to get to. You know, and it may be 2 years to get there or something. We don't know how long it is to get there. And we can help prioritize what the most important things are, which to me, the EOC talking to the internet seems like number one there when we had problems last time, but I could be wrong. Council, do you want staff to work on this? And council could say, yes, we want staff to work on this. And then staff starts working with EPRC to come up with more of a timeline and so, and then we come back around and it may be December when we do our presentation for next year's goals for the town, is that plan gets laid into the goals for the town. I don't think it's gonna move any faster than that, but it's, I mean, yeah, that's how it's just been. Yes.
And to be clear, there's some requirements in here where we say, you should do this, very prescriptive, and there's other requirements where you go, we need this, but we don't know how to do it.
And I think that's completely reasonable.
Yeah, I do too.
Because
but
this is a two-way conversation, but
Exactly.
what you're asking for is the council say, yes, this is important to us.
Yeah.
Which I'll rally for sure.
Yeah, my question was, I just want to make sure that the council understands what we're asking.
They don't yet, but we will.
But so as long as they can be made to understand based on these documents, that's my.
I will take it upon myself to help in that process.
Okay, good.
Yes, so yeah, I did, yes.
I have a question. Do we need to have nuts and bolts added to this for the council to essentially get a sense of what we are really recommending? For example, hardened internet backbone or stuff like that. Does anybody have to more or less pay attention to that aspect in service of council?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think laying out the goal and why it's important and how we split up the tasks is a good place to start, recognizing that staff is going to have to contribute time to coming up with the details. That we can't do it without them, but we're asking them to do something. And so we're starting.
I really didn't mean that for us to be doing it. I meant us, staff doing it in preparation for us presenting it to the council.
Well, I
Maybe
would,
that's not needed.
yeah, I would suggest for this presentation, we don't involve staff other than telling them we're going to do it. I mean, make them aware, but yeah.
I think they are explicitly mentioned here as the technology committee. Did that stay in, Terry? I'm not sure if we
It did.
It did. Okay, yeah. So they had input to the process and have been included up till now.
I just.
So we haven't been moving separately and around them, but with
It's
them.
my miss, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, no, and I'll put it on request for the agenda in August. It's gonna be a marathon meeting, boys. Girls. So at 1 o'clock, we're like still talking about the agenda items, but anyway, that's not an issue for you guys to worry about. This week, but this week, in pretty early.
Then I guess, is there anything else I or any of us can do to support you in that process?
I will probably ask somebody to put together a 2 or 3 slide presentation. And, you know, I'll read back through this and say, if I can do it, I'll try to. And
We can help you with.
that's so like kind of you. You're a good guy, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think these are the slides we're talking about for that presentation. This,
No.
this is the reference material. It's not that, yeah.
Let me make a cut and send it back to you, and how I think the level it ought to be
That
at,
would be lovely.
and then you can add in details on the.
Did the wording of the resolution itself seem like it was even close to the mark?
I need to read it again.
Okay,
Yeah, let's go through it so we can vote on it.
Oh, I see, right. Okay, shall,
I don't know what Joule is though, that's a careful thing.
sorry? Oh,
Okay, scroll back up.
Oh, July, yeah.
oh, June.
Julie, yeah.
Right, we can,
It's finished.
I,
It's the right month. No,
It's one of those months.
Terry, would you concur, really, the only thing we need to read and understand is that one paragraph is the resolution?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, so there it is. I'll just read it aloud. The resolution that we drafted, first pass, was to direct LAH staff with support from EPRC and related LAH committees as needed, so collaboratively, to develop an overall roadmap and individual project proposals to implement or upgrade the town's emergency communications infrastructure to meet the requirements herein, or as appropriate, to propose changes to those requirements, for example, based on budget or feasibility, for review by EPRC and council.
From us to you.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking,
I would make the D lowercase. Then direct, sorry.
okay, now that leaves open the timeline issue.
Completely.
and Implementation, so yeah, okay, yep.
Come back to us and we'll work on it.
I want to include line about the timeline.
I'm sorry?
We want to ask that not only do they come up with a roadmap, but that it specifically includes a timeline, or is a roadmap always have a timeline?
Oh, I see. I was thinking that the project proposals would probably be the ones bearing the timelines, and they might be very different. The proposal to make the binder and the proposal to harden the internet are going to have nothing to do with each other.
But
And the overall roadmap,
it sounds like the thought, the concept of making sure that there's time limitations on any of the projects is implicit.
So why don't we make it explicit?
I like the idea.
Yeah, individual project proposals with timelines to implement.
Beautiful.
Well, you may want to divide this into two steps for the staff and those out there, is that you're asking them to put together a map, and then I think you would want to help them prioritize. So if you put together a list of things, is the prioritization and the talk about how we build these into the timeline past that first step, or is this encompass all of the?
We could strike the word individual and replace it with prioritized project proposals with timelines.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
I want to try to capture the entire process.
Okay,
rather
no,
than
I'm fine.
cut it to pieces.
That
It
works for
just-
you, Dave? No, I'm seeing squint.
I don't know, it just. I think the way I'm approaching is that I'd like the council to put the stamp saying, yeah, we're gonna do this first. And then we can come back with smaller projects and prioritize projects.
That's what I intend this to exactly mean. So if it's not meaning that to you, then we're not communicating well, because that's exactly right.
That's what I'm, to me, but I think it may be because I had prior discussions.
Yeah, the words to develop an overall roadmap and prioritize project proposals with timelines. It captures both of those concepts. That's in my mind. That's how I
Yes,
read it.
those are all forward-looking. The only real meat of the resolution is that the default requirements context for all those proposals is this set of stuff.
Yep.
That's really all we're saying. Nothing about the projects themselves,
Nope.
when they start or end, or the size of the roadmap, because I just don't think we know. And I just don't think we can do it.
Yeah, I think the pushback we'll get is, this is gonna take a while, and we recognize that, and the council needs to agree to this. This is an ongoing process, and so that we can make.
Well, you can flip that and say, because it's an ongoing process, it would be dangerous to do in too ad hoc and floating away, because things tend to not all be integrated in this. So you have to have at one point sort of a central vision to hold together a long set of projects, and this is what that is intended to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, staff, it's not staff, but but management, here's another thing you have to do. We're saying, yes, but we're building it along the way, and this is important, and council saying this is important, so we're gonna start making decisions to put time into this for staff. So that's why the
I see.
open-ended portion of it.
Yep.
Is the way they look at problems as they need to is, wait, do I have enough people to do this and what do I not do?
Right. Yes, we're very explicitly avoiding that problem by not trying to set resource for time limits.
Okay,
Or defining projects.
Or even defining their projects. We're just trying to say when they're done, they have to add up eventually in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
To something, all these years of check boxes that are going to have to get checked by the time you're done.
I have a question for Lisa.
Hi, Neil.
I Neil.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, but would it be useful for the council if we prioritize the list? Right now, it's a collection of stuff and we didn't try to say, this should be done first, then that, then something else? Or would the council rather do that or have asked staff to do that?
I don't want the council to do it. I want someone to make a proposal to the council, and if we're not ready to do that, I think that's fine. That could be the first step. I think you want to float that, and I think you want staff to have some input to that discussion. So starting out by doing it, I think is a better idea. No, council doesn't want to prioritize it, or it shouldn't. It should let the experts prioritize.
Neil, the only thing I'm thinking about why we might be over our skis too much with priorities at this level is that I think some of this stuff may happen sooner, not because it's a higher priority, but because it dovetails with work that's going on right now. For example, work in the internet stuff in this building. It may or may not be the highest priority, but we want to try to be smart and efficient about the way we get to building these things. And so priorities might just disturb that mindset.
Want to be opportunistic when possible.
Right.
Yeah. I feel bad that I can that word.
Strike it from the record.
So it's written.
Personally, I think the slight vagueness is useful.
I agree. Yeah.
And again, council is saying this is priority. We have experts that'll do the decisions on the priority, but this is a priority, and I think that's where you want it to roll out, is to start working on it. People who know more than the five of us do, which is pretty much anything.
Well, the folks who have been working on this are as expert as you're gonna find.
Yeah, I know.
That's going outside this town, so.
Yeah, you just want to be able to get buy-in from staff too, because they're gonna have to live with this and work with this for a long time, so that's why I think we're gonna start slightly higher than the prioritized list.
I thought they were super terrifically cooperative and helpful in the process that we went through with them. So I'm not anticipating.
Oh, no. Yeah, the issue will come down is they'll have, council, everybody asking them to do 5 things, and their management has to say, we can only do 3. And we're saying, yes, this is one of the 3 we want you to do. That's the reason for doing this.
So, project proposals with timelines, or did we not?
We did.
I changed it to prioritize on the screen there.
And then with
That's what people
after the
want.
word proposals, I think Terry's idea is with timelines, so that it can be clear that there will be a time when timelines are produced. That time is not now.
And like I said, my vision is that this gets rolled into a work plan for next year.
Right.
Is that how it ends up?
At least 1 year, perhaps.
Well, and it may take more than 1 year, but when you start next year with a work plan of what we want to be done.
Well, to the extent that internet work is going on right now, this should be overlaid on that current work, so that can, it can be opportunistic.
Yes. Yeah. Parasites, as you might.
Symbiotes.
Just as long as we get it done by July.
But that was Julie.
Okay. So I would move that we vote on the resolution presented in the working group's cover document. And that is to direct LAH staff with support from EPRC and related LAH communities as needed to develop an overall roadmap and prioritize project proposals with timelines.
Going team of the highest caliber.
To implement or upgrade the town emergency communications infrastructure to meet the requirements herein, or as appropriate, to propose changes to those requirements herein, for example, based on budget or feasibility flows permitted for review by EPRC and council. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it. Although now I'm gonna chase around and find minutes, so I can do it. All right, so you moved. I seconded. Let's go backwards this time, Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Sachdeva,
Aye.
Mr. Harder,
Aye.
Mr. Basiji.
Aye.
Well, I'm voting aye. Mr. Dickus.
Aye.
And Mr. Kearney.
Aye.
That's unanimous 4.
Thank you so much for all this hard work.
You know,
The sad part is, well, no, this is a good part is, hopefully no one will ever know it all went on because you'll never use it. But I suspect that's, yeah, suppose that's probably gonna be the case, so.
We have been overthanked already, I think, for an exercise that took a while, some time compared to what you all do on a regular basis and over the course of a period of a year. So we're grateful that you're all here doing this.
Thank you for your note, Neil. Yes, I'll run this by people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's now my job to sell.
Excellent. And you're gonna get the bullet points.
I'll try to spell everything correctly here in mind.
Please just contact me formally if I can help in any way.
I will, you will be the first person to be.
Or any
Okay.
of us.
So sorry to cut this up, but I know, Melissa, you've been online waiting for Neil. Did you have a question for Neil?
Hi, Neil. So I had a couple of questions.
Bad feedback.
Hello?
Melissa?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Solar flare.
Yeah, digital blender. The ether. Melissa, we can't hear you.
It doesn't sound like feedback from the room, but maybe if you could mute the room just to see if it helps Melissa come through. Go ahead, try again, please, Melissa.
Hello?
We can just barely hear you. And there's a lot of feedback when you try to say something.
I see. Let me try to put my headphones on.
And while Melissa's doing that, I think you can unmute the room. It had no effect. Can someone remind me who Melissa is and what the question was if she raised it before?
Yeah, so Neil, it's Terry. So Melissa is a town engineer and she's working on the Heritage House renovation. She's got 2 requests of the committee. 3 requests. One is that someone participate in our weekly meetings, which are held, I believe, on Wednesday at 3 o'clock, so that she doesn't need to join every month to talk to us. And she can get immediate feedback on issues relating to emergency communications. And so we collectively told you to be that person. I don't know if you need to be on every week, but that would be awesome if you could do that. The alternative would, I assume, be Duncan, who also knows a little bit about that, but is less involved in this committee than you are. The second piece that she has, a request that she has for us, relates to documents that are in the Heritage House. Apparently, in addition to radios and repeaters and whatnot, there are also a bunch of documents. And before they demo the building, they'd like us to take out what we don't want demoed. And
Okay.
the third,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and the third, I don't remember.
Okay, Melissa, when I talk, can you hear me okay?
Melissa,
Not
try
sure.
again.
Yeah, she go in chat.
Okay.
Oh, she can hear us.
Okay, so I can't make every Wednesday at 3. I have a couple of standing meetings, but I can make most of them, so hopefully that's okay. And I don't have had any problems, being the liaison interface, whatever you want to call it, for ham radio. About the documents, well, it wasn't the documents because I think the documents are Heritage House or other people, not us. So I have no problem conceptually with that, although I need to know where to store all the stuff. And if the town could help us provide us a place, that would be useful. If not, the fire district might be able to help out. Okay, so I'm guessing it's the 2 closets, and we probably don't have an EOC while construction's going on. I never really considered that as a question. I'm guessing we're also going to pack up the EOC. Is that a true statement? The radio room part of the EOC, I should be careful about. Or maybe that's a topic we should move offline and discuss.
Neil, earlier she said yes, because they're going to do a lot of demo in there. You don't want to leave the radios connected.
And that makes perfect sense. Do we need a radio room at all, or is the town happy to go without while the construction's going on for picking a number out of the air 18 months? And if we need to take this offline, I'm happy to do so. It's the question that occurs to me for the plan. And do you want to type the third one, or I can type my phone number in and we can just chat afterwards, not in the middle of the EPRC meeting, if that works for folks.
Yeah, that'd be great, Neil. I mean, it sounds like you could resolve that important question that you're asking about the time lag and the lack of an EOC with Melissa in the context of those meetings. Melissa, if that answers enough of your questions, can you just give us a thumbs up in the chat?
Neil is checking his calendar. He's not ignoring you. Yes, I can do next Wednesday at 3. I'm assuming virtual is okay. Let me know if that's not true. Okay, can we turn the meeting back to, I guess it's going to me next anyway, but.
Perfect. Okay, so the next agenda item, thank you, Melissa. The next agenda item is to receive, discuss, and potentially vote on a proposal for the Amateur Radio Club. Bill Latin was going to present, and Neil is taking his place. So Neil, can you take it away, please?
Yeah, I'm going to keep my part very short. I believe we distributed, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, that the 1-page proposal was already distributed to the committee. So I will try to stay under like 2 minutes. The ECC went away. This is and ham radio, CERT does some of it, but a lot of ham radio folks really have no interest in CERT and the things CERT does. This is to provide 2 things for the town. Basically, a place to recruit, train, and socialize amateur radio people in the town for other needs that the town has. Possibly ham radio, possibly other things like staffing the EOC with volunteers in an emergency. And the other one is to keep the radio equipment up and running, which is clearly a very ham-centric kind of thing that really isn't in the center of what CERT's all about. So this is a proposal that the EPRC recommend to the town that we do a non-Brown Act committee that will take care of those goals for the town. And just to give credit where credit is due, most of this came from Bill Latin and Larry Carr. I am just the voice tonight.
So Neil, so that I'm clear, this is not an official subcommittee. This is the request is for the EPRC to support the formation of the club. Is that?
We would really prefer not to be Brown Act. I don't think we need to be. I don't
Right.
think we're going to be
I
making
agree.
formal recommendations by and large. And if we do, we'll go through the EPRC. So subcommittee has a particular Brown Act definition, and I don't want to be that.
I agree. Okay. And so I'm trying to get clear in my own mind how we as the town's standing committee support that. Do you want us to put in a resolution to the council associated with a sum of money or
Yes.
a room, or what sort of support do you folks need?
So it sounds like Dave has the answer on the tip of his tongue, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, what I'm noticing is that I thought this was included as a link in the agenda, but I'm not seeing it. And so now I'm racing around to find the most recent proposal that has a dollar amount, a number of hours of meetings per month, and some other stuff in it, so we can talk about it.
So as I recall, it was $500 a year for standing kind of stuff, both social and equipment update. And there will be occasional bigger asks, if we have to do something significant like a repeater breaks or antennas need to be replaced. And yes, we're asking for the ability to meet at town facilities, which is why we're looking for some level of officialdom.
All the equipment belongs to the town right now?
Yes.
That's a question.
Yes, of course.
Neil, I'm confused as to whether the model for this club is as an organization which, though non-Brown Act, is in effect subordinated to and controlled by EPRC, or whether it's a freestanding organization which has its own governance of some kind, which we could ask questions about, that simply receives funding from the town because it suits a purpose that links up to the town's emergency plans.
I believe
So-
it's B.
Okay, I was going to say A, but either one would be fine. The reason why I was thinking it was A is eventually we will be making requests from the town, and unless we go direct to council, usually the town likes things to be filtered by its standing committees. And Lisa, please correct me if I'm wrong. So I was thinking our parent, that we would go through would be the EPRC because it's the most relevant to the stuff we're doing.
I would defer to staff or council on this. I don't know what the best structure is. What you say makes complete sense to me, so I
Just
can take it for the.
to throw out something on the other side, just so it's in the discussion, to the extent that there is a chance, and we had discussed this explicitly, and I had discussed it with Bill, as Sam and I are voting members on the Los Altos Emergency Group, which is the group which is itself a freestanding club with its own governance that manages the repeater. It is our thought that this club being formed and being discussed could either work with or possibly replace or inherit the responsibilities of LAHEG and include the repeater among the things that is managed by the equipment that Neil said. For that to be possible, and it is not something that LAHEG has approved or discussed, I am as an individual pointing out that it is a possibility. It is not the only possibility. For that to be possible, I think the freestanding model is essential because of FCC rules about the repeater. And I think in that configuration, all of the goals that Bill put together could still be met. So I'd like to not have it be assumed that A is the best way if that's something that we want to keep open.
Okay.
Sorry, Neil.
Can I address?
Yeah, you address, please.
So first of all, I am happy with anything that works for the town and, you know, and everyone else. So I am not set on one way or the other. I know Scott consciously didn't set it up that way because there has been a historical problem of clubs with open membership who control repeaters being taken over. And, you know, so 10, 20 people join, they vote, they do something, change the charter basically, and you no longer have the repeater for what you attended. So that's why both the LAH and the Specs Repeater Association are closed organizations rather than open organizations. And that was done after the very thing I described happened to 20 years ago to a repeater in San Ramon. So not that I'm against the idea in principle, but I thought that was a good motivation for why you leave the membership organization separate from the repeater organization.
Thanks, Neil. That's a great point. And I think that maybe we should take this offline for a more detailed discussion, just to perhaps say that there might be flavors of governance or other things about the approval of a club by EPRC and council, which keep open all these pathways in the right balance of those things, but still don't require it to be a unit of town government. But
right.
Yeah.
And no matter what the organizational structure is, I still see the club as being a person power resource to the emergency group, which is one of the reasons why I think you're thinking about merging them is, so that it's not just the three of you. And that strikes me as I fully support that as a goal. I just want to make sure we don't lose governance of the repeater.
Fair enough. Let's agree to work together and find a great path forward.
One question, does the EG get funds from the town?
It does not get regular funds from the town, but under the memorandum of understanding between the town and the EG for the operation of the repeater, there are provisions for expense reimbursement for necessary maintenance.
And that doesn't affect the FCC's prohibition against municipalities?
Not according to the lawyers who drafted it before I was on the scene to inherit it. To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me like it's a little bit more complicated than we're currently able to resolve in this meeting. So what I propose is that we get a cleaner formal proposal for something that the EPRC can support, get behind, discuss, adopt, and maybe propose to the town council. If that's useful, it seems to me also a possibility that you wouldn't need our input. I think that it would be helpful to have the EPRC's imprimatur. But why don't we leave that to David, you and Neil and Sam, maybe?
Well, I think Bill and Neil and Larry for the club.
Oh,
and I would
right.
and I would encourage Neil for you to carry back to Bill and Larry that we should have a conversation between EG and this club organization to think through and advance the issues we were just talking about and build them into the proposal that you bring back for adoption by EPRC.
And if you'd like me to help this company can get, so that I can run it back to Art, I'm happy to sit in and participate if that's helpful, so that it's blessed by the town CEL, the council, and the council.
Yeah, that SEL might be good to have that person take a look at that.
Exactly.
MOU.
And just make sure everybody's happy with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I just want to summarize what I heard as the two issues, and please correct me if I didn't capture everything. So the first one was, what's the relationship between the emergency group and the club? One thing, separate things. And then the second issue was, what's the relationship between the club and the EPRC? Did I miss any other issues that folks have raised?
Not hearing anything on this side, Neil.
Wait, repeat
Okay.
the first one.
Was the relationship between the EG and the club? Yeah, emergency group
owners.
The
Yeah,
repeater.
well, I think it falls in there, the relationship with the town and whatever entity comes out of this and how, because
Yeah, I think
funds and
it's
support.
fair enough.
Between the club and the EPRC and or town.
Yeah,
Well, whatever the successor to the EG is, which is not this, that I wouldn't presuppose that it's gonna be the club.
Right, until the club and EG can create some vision of how to work together, I think it's premature to handicap where the MOU currently in effect with EG, which is ongoing and in place and fine.
Okay, yeah.
But we will get back to it.
Okay.
Neil, sound good?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I write down the players. So I have Larry, Bill, Neil, David is, who else am I missing? Sam, do you want to be, do you need to be there?
Oh, well, I'm involved in the emergency group. I don't necessarily need to be involved in the club per se. We'll see how that works out.
Right,
I
but
think,
are you comfortable,
I-
having David represent the EG in this
No,
discussion?
that's not a question that Sam can answer or I can. We need to have a vote to empower one of us to go talk to you guys about the future of ourselves. And I will take on the action item of getting that to happen so that one of us can participate in this visioning with you guys and work these problems out.
Fair enough. So is it okay if I list you as the contact and you'll let us
Yes, I
know
think
what
it's
the
overwhelmingly
EG representation?
LBI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I volunteer.
Okay. Can I give the meeting back to the rest of the group, or have we wrapped this up?
You may. This is super helpful. I'm glad we're advancing this, and I apologize for not being able to deal with for the last two meetings. So looking forward. So we'll put you on the agenda for next month, or do you think you'll need more time?
If it's okay, put us on the agenda next month and we can check in a week before and see if we're ready or not.
Excellent.
Could the committee also request a copy of the proposal, the draft proposal that was created to review? Because I don't know if this was sent out.
Yeah,
Well, certainly you can request and receive. I thought I linked it into the last agenda, but maybe since I
Sorry, maybe
didn't do
missed
the
it.
last agenda, that's why we didn't.
I was
Okay.
looking at, find it, but
I
maybe I
didn't see
missed it.
I don't see it on the town website's version of the agenda.
Yeah, if it's not on the published agenda, then it's not on the published agenda. It
Okay.
doesn't matter what's in my private files.
Okay, so we'll get that circulated to the committee and to whomever else.
Okay. So this is going to be a revisit.
Can we do that? You will circulate a non-agendized document to the committee.
I'm not a lawyer. Some other people have been. But, what
Not that kind of lawyer.
what I recall is that so long as we later make it part of the published stuff, then it's okay.
And why don't we just circulate it without comment and have no return?
Yeah, well, you
comments?
can't do that anyway, but publishing a document, so.
Yeah, let's do that. Can you publish it on the town's website?
I certainly could.
Yeah, why
I
don't you,
can ask for it to be published. Yeah, that way it'll be.
and then we can each get the email and so can anyone else who's.
Okay. A second.
Isn't there a reasonable path to just include it in the minutes?
We could include it in the minutes of this meeting, but it won't be published until next month.
Well, but we can submit drafts.
Can you submit a draft? If Dave gets it to the, to the website and sends an email, that's good enough for me
Yeah,
in whatever form. Is that okay with you, Neil? If it's in the minutes, it's in the minutes.
Yeah, sorry. I don't mean to nitpick. Anything that works for you guys is good by me.
yeah. The real problem with the minutes is that I can put it in easy enough, but it doesn't get published until they've been approved. So it wouldn't show up until next month anyway.
Okay, so Dave will figure out a way to get it published
Yeah.
and circulated. So.
I'll make sure I talk to Deborah and find out how to do it legally.
Okey doke. Well, thank you, Neil. That's super helpful. I'm glad we're moving that forward. So we've only got a couple things left, standing reports. The liaison Schmidt is here. You got a report for this meeting? It's not necessary.
Not really, we're not having council meeting this month, take a month off. The next one will be a long one, town virtual research, the big issue. I asked to put an update on the housing element in the next agenda.
Okay. Good. And city manager decided not to, well, don't need to.
I have a very short report from them.
Go ahead.
Okay, I talked to Cody. Peter's out of town, he's on vacation this week. And they are going to be meeting with Los Altos to discuss this emergency manager position on the, I want to say 18th, but after this meeting and before our next meeting, so we'll get an update then.
Yeah, the email that I got was said that the meeting is tomorrow. First meeting with LA is tomorrow, but name it, they haven't had the first meeting yet. They're gonna have it soon and they'll update us on.
All true.
Okay. I would want to put into the record, just because it's been bugging me. I mean, it concerns me as a member of the EPRC that we would be sharing an emergency manager with a much larger municipality. And if, let's just say, hypothetically, there's an earthquake, and let's just say that it affects both Los Altos and Los Altos Hills equally, I just am concerned that the larger entity is going to take a much larger mind share of the emergency manager. And so I would like the minutes to reflect my concern anyway, that we deal not just with synergies, which I imagine there are, but with the potential for significant conflict between LAH and Los Altos as relates to this person's time.
I've considered this the same way. Looked up the percentage, they're like 80% of the population, therefore 80% of the budget. I don't know how many other people ever contract with two different organizations, 80-20, and how much the 20 gets, but the answer is hardly ever any.
Yeah.
The other thing that concerned me is that we contract out our city services to the county, and they have local police at least. So there's another opportunity for things to get completely jumbled up.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Thank you. Okay, so Victoria is not here for the CFD report. So why don't we turn to the EPRC standing committee reports? And let's just roll through them. One of the things that I want everyone to keep in mind is that at the end of this, let's go back to the town's resolution from last October and revisit whether or not we want to readopt the same set of subcommittees. So Amanda, you're up with community outreach.
Okay, great. So I wasn't present for the last meeting, and I believe I was elected for the EPRC to have a table at our safety event on September 30th. So if anyone would like to kind of update me on that, that would be great. And then I can speak on what we can do for the outreach committee.
I think that was Victoria's request.
Oh, hey.
So yeah, so it is a Cody Victoria show,
Okay,
and since neither of them are here, you have to get to them directly, I guess.
perfect. That sounds good. Well, the last event that we did, the honoring our safety leaders in the town, I think went off really well, and it was a great success. Of course, a great opportunity for us to talk about our three most important organizations, CERT, our community, oh my gosh, sorry. No, our Neighborhood Watch, not Community Watch, thank you. Neighborhood Watch and then Firewise. So this would be another great opportunity to do that again, hopefully. So,
Well, and also I know Victoria or Peter, I can't remember who told me that we've had several interested in starting Firewise. And I know that Dave and I are competing.
What was the competition? How was that we were friendly?
Yeah, well, we had our meeting already. Now, and we've scheduled Denise So give us some.
Oh.
So we're moving on to the
Denise has
steering
already
committee.
been our,
No, she was at our meeting, now we're doing the steering committee meeting.
Okay, so
But I think it's more than me and Dave. I think there are other people that are starting up,
That's-
which is good.
that's really good.
Yep.
Really good. Okay, so the medical environmental health subcommittee, Dr. Harder.
We have a meeting scheduled in Sunday of this month, so that'll be our first meeting. We'll have something important.
Okay, good. DSW, let's pass that because I think we almost shut that down last week, but I think
we
or last week.
recommended that we sunset it last month.
Okay, town emergency plan, Stuart. Excuse me.
The status of that is that with Anne writing plans, but unavailable for comment. I think I'm kind of stuck with reading the plans and making comments, and I'm not quite sure what else we're going to do with that in the short term. I have been communicating with Cody with respect to this shared emergency manager, which I think is where he's driving this part of the program. So the emergency manager will be responsible for implementation of training and actual DSW work. One of the things that he pointed out was that Anne is just a contractor, and that this person who's working for Los Altos will be a DSW. That is to say, they can pull him in during an emergency and force him to work.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm kind of stuck. I can read what Anne's writing, but that's about it.
Gotcha. Okay, understood. Mass notification, so Neil, that's you, and if you can take a look under item 12, the second bullet. It's been requested that we discuss at our next meeting a testing of the town's emergency mass notification system. So I know this, you've been busy on a bunch of other things, but I'm wondering if this is something that you've got a report on.
I have made zero progress, and I was actually going to request we pull it from the list of standing reports because I have spent no time on it, and with Anne being time boxed, it's been, you know, trouble getting the, you know, any of her time. I'm not trying to blame her for any of this. This is really all my fault. But I mean, we can talk about the two ways we currently do things, but I don't think, you know, it's going to be a very small report if we make one.
Understood. So we have a council member who's interested in testing this mass notification system. So why don't we move the issue to that and let our liaison Schmidt drive.
Well, I mean,
hopefully some progress in that.
If you just mean testing Nixle, I think that's a pretty well-known process, and I don't know how many people got it, but we just got it for the roads being closed. They did all 3 Nixle channels. So I feel like we just had a test 2 days ago of Nixle.
Okay,
I got them all.
2 of us didn't, 1 of us did. So, okay, well, and that's with respect to the report, so I understand. And we'll get to, so emergency communications is rolling great. I mean, you guys are doing a bang up job. And so most of the progress so far has been on that, and it's super important for us to do because we've closed down the EEC, you know, to form this committee. And so I don't expect you guys to have a report because we just heard what you guys have been doing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I have a problem with Nixle, by the way.
Okay.
The way Nixle works is that it plays a message, and it plays the message as soon as the phone is answered. So if you have a voicemail system, it'll answer the phone and play a recording. In the meantime, Nixle will be busy spewing out all of this voice into the announcement. So by the time the announcement ends and the beep happens and it's ready to start recording, it only gets a tiny little piece at the end. So Nixle needs to rearrange the way it handles calls so that if there's a voicemail system that it'll repeat the stuff that it talked about at the beginning that it went over the announcement with.
That's shocking. That's insane. Is that just Alert SCC or is that all the Nixle?
Well, every time I've had, it may be common to the way that people designed the Nixle project, because I've seen it with other entities, but I noticed that this last time with the town, that it jumped in, it basically at the end, it had a few words about the streets. And I knew what the rest of it was going to say, but of course I couldn't get that because it wasn't, because it didn't say it while the recorder was running.
Okay, well, maybe we want to put that as part of this subject for a discussion on an agenda item for the next meeting. Because I think it's super important as notification. I mean, if we don't tell people what they're supposed to do or what's happening.
Terry, I can address the specific question you asked if you want.
Yes, sir.
So Nixle and Alert SEC are the same thing under the covers. They're both Everbridge with just different front ends, and both the voice channels work the same. If you hang up, it will call you again, but if it goes to voicemail, it will just play the whole message.
Okay.
So we
But
can
it
repeat the
needs
message.
to repeat the message is the point, because it plays the whole message starting as soon as the phone is answered. And during that announcement period, nothing is being recorded. So part of the message, normally the most important part of the message, does not get recorded.
Member of the public got a question? Comment?
Just kind of wondering, have we ever used a mass communication yet? I mean, for an actual emergency?
Yes.
Yeah.
And during the atmospheric river, there were a bunch of, I think they're called advisories as opposed to.
The atmospheric river,
Because they
which
come out
was-
in 2 or 3 different levels.
Just happened.
Yes. But they were inconsistent in my experience. There are people who got them and people who didn't get them. There are issues with respect to adoption throughout the town. I think there are 3,000 or so
Yeah, I think it was like 3,000 out of 8,000.
out of 8.
This is
So
opt-in.
Well, and to be clear, that's the number of endpoints in the database. So, how many have moved away or ingressed?
There's also another issue. A lot of the towers were down. So if you realize on a tower, you get a message to a resident, you won't get it.
huge issue in the campfire, all those cell towers burned. So
Which comes back to my issue that I keep on.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the storms, they're different and they're new and they're gonna be there.
right.
And
But do you have any? Other than just what you're sharing right now, is there essentially any sense of kind of how many people actually did get this and understood it and stuff like that?
This is the purpose of the
yeah,
test.
sort of Lisa's point.
We do need, so there are a couple different, in my mind, there are a couple levels, right? What's the adoption? And that needs to be thought about very carefully. If you walk, House and I both have Nixle, we're mostly together. So I don't know that should be covered. Right, so that's one house, one household. But I don't know how that gets counted. And we're less than half by far. Then who actually has access to those phones? How many of those actually get, because you have.
I haven't, and sometimes I don't,
Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. And the message that's actually sent is that understandable, people are not, English speakers or for whatever reason, they're not able to understand the significance of the information that's being sent. So that it's actionable. So there are all kinds of issues, I think, with respect to the mass notification. And Neil has been, you've got some experience with that, Neil. So why don't we move that to next month per Lisa's request for the next month's agenda? Are you going to be here next month, Neil?
I'll be around, assuming I don't forget about the meeting again. My apologies. So the one thing I would request so we can prep well for that is if I can get a focused set of questions you want us able to present or respond to, rather than mass notification, as an amorphous blob.
Okay, yeah.
So who wants to be listed on that action item?
I'll be listed on that action.
Perfect.
And then I expect people to pile on my list.
So then-
Please.
So can you put, I think we should need to volunteer Schmidt after Caton on the mass notification list. See what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah. Actually, that's not the place to put it. It'll never stick,
Okay.
but yeah, I got
Okay.
it here.
Perfect, Neil, thank you.
Yeah, and the reason why I want the questions is so when I reach out to Anne, I can use her time productively.
Perfect, okay.
Our next meeting is the first, correct? August 1st.
Let me check on that.
First Tuesday.
Yeah, is it the first or is it the
It's,
eighth?
I am out of town.
First Tuesday is August 1st.
I am out of town. Completely out.
Sounds great.
Unless it's in Texas.
No, it's not in Texas, it's in the Sierra, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm happy to, yeah.
Well, we can work on that before. The meeting,
Okay,
because we're also gonna need to get some, we're gonna need to do work for the ham radio. Okay, so I guess we've oh, so now let's have a discussion concerning these standing subcommittees. So
I wanted to have one more comment on the emergency mass notification. One of the things that came across my email chain today was Santa Cruz is trying to figure out how to do this on a zone by zone basis. And seems like that makes a great amount of sense to me. You don't just broadcast to the entire town and get half the people going, oh, mine's zone 12. I don't know, although maybe they should. But they were using voter registration rolls as a way to try and capture some of these names. And I don't know how public that information is, but that's an approach that we could look at as the town that I can't use an insert, for instance. I have to get opt-in for everybody.
no, actually, anybody can get voter rolls. You purchase them.
Okay.
No, I mean, they're quite accessible as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, so there's probably plenty of public information that is more accessible to the town than I could use. in
Also, the
search.
immigrants don't have, are not reflected in this.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and Zone Haven is not that established in this town yet. So most people don't know what Zone Haven are there is.
Despite the fire district's best efforts. Okay, and my comment.
good.
Fire district is best.
So why don't we roll through these subcommittees, because I want to make sure that, we've got the right lineup here. And so it seems to me that community outreach is super important, that should stay. Medical and environmental health, that should stay. DSW, I think we already sort of generally agreed to sunset that last year, just declare victory.
Yep.
I think was the phrase.
Well, so the original goal of that was to identify some DSWs, not to fully implement the entire thing.
Right.
And so in that sense, we declare victory.
Would you like to declare victory for emergency plans, or should this be?
No, I would not like to declare victory. I think
Okay.
the town is deficient in its emergency planning overall, and that, and I welcome any other people who want to contribute to this, but we're kind of stalled at this point with Anne's timeline and this new person coming on in a month or so. So don't expect any news in the short term.
Okay. Mass notification, Neil, I think it's super important. I'd like to keep that as a subcommittee, but I could be convinced otherwise. Neil, you're on mute if you were saying something.
I wasn't saying anything because
Okay. You agree?
I don't debate its importance. I just would love to have a second person to go work with on it.
Well, we're giving you Lisa.
For a small amount of time, then you might want something else.
It's in the minutes, it must be true.
Must be true. It's in Dave's minutes. Okay, and then emergency MCOM, super important. You guys are doing great. I think that should stay. Are there does anyone disagree with any of that we would sunset DSW and maintain the other 5? Are there other subcommittees that we ought to think about. I don't personally want to add any more, but. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this pandemic of home breakings we have in the hills. And they are beginning, the size of it is beginning to look like and something that emergency committee must at least take a look at. We may decide not to include it. And I'm not sure, you're not, it certainly is not in our charter either. And everything else we have here for committee subcommittees is part of our charter.
Yeah.
But if you were to address that, how would you go about it?
Respectfully, I would say no. There's an ad hoc committee of the council working on it directly. I think that it is part of public safety. I agree completely, but I think that the particulars of it and how we address it are very different. We're dealing with things that we're trying to get out mass.
Yeah, this is all mostly the
It's sheriff.
natural disasters and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And clearly the home breaking is a natural disaster. But the fact that matters that it is becoming the situation where everywhere you go in town, within a small circle, you hear about it. And so,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very important, but I would push back against the committee taking it on because I think it kind of drifts away from what we're really good at, which is these natural disasters.
there is that problem for sure.
Yeah.
But is there any other committee in town other than the council subcommittee that are addressing this?
The technology committee has done a little bit of it with the LPRs. It's mainly a contractual issue and deciding what we want to do.
It's a safety issue. It's not a contractor issue.
Well,
The contractor issue is a response to a safety issue.
yeah,
So let's call the problem what it is. It is a safety issue for the town.
I agree completely. I just don't think this is the right committee to.
One of these times, one of these break-ins will end up with a loss of life. And then maybe deep shut.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, well, so I don't mean to cut that off, but why don't we maintain sort of the decorum of the EPRC? And because that really, I don't think I agree with Councilmember, it's just not in our charter.
Then let's make some.
Let's do talk about that though, because it is super important.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. But let's, we've got people, online and members of the public, so.
I get it.
Okay, I think we're winding down then, so should we discuss the next meeting's agenda? So there has been a suggestion that we have the sheriff's office give a presentation on evacuation procedures. I think it's a great idea. Obviously, if you look at the EOP, they're overlapping circles, sets in the Venn diagram of an evacuation. So you've got fire, you've got the sheriff's office, you've got the town. And so we're going to get a small piece of that, and we don't have an EOP. So I don't want to, put the cart in front of the horse, but I do think it's important for us to get the SO in here.
Even if this is just a partial view on it, it's still more than, certainly I have no real idea what's going on with the sheriff's office if they decide to evacuate because of fire or hazmat or anything else.
Right. So I'm not trying to make an end run around. We're not trying to make an end run around the EOP, which is sort of in the state of economy.
But the sheriff should be prepared to do an evacuation.
The sheriff should be prepared.
Something right.
So the only, the downside is, or the complicating factor is that we're supposedly not supposed to talk to our, town's consultants. So we can't reach out to the SO, I don't think.
I don't
Or
think
can
that's
we?
part of the,
Peter's,
yeah.
the thing,
So I'll ask him to reach out and solve the problem.
that'd be great.
Then everybody.
Well done.
Thank you. Then, really good point, yes, so we should, thank you, we right past that. So let us then, I would move,
Hang on a second, I'm still.
I would,
I read the rules yesterday.
Ask
no, I'm glad you did.
Peter to contact sheriff's office
You want this for the next meeting?
if possible,
Um,
whatever works.
A1, so,
Yeah.
okay, even though I'm not gonna be here.
Well,
You want to take your place?
but you have a shadow. It's gotta be a shadow.
There we go. Okay, I will.
My guess is that it's gonna take longer than that. No,
Yeah. Okay.
So I would, thank you, Phil. So I move that the committee adopt the community outreach, medical, environmental health, town emergency plans, mass notification, and emergency communications standing subcommittees. And that we sunset the DSW groups and programs subcommittee. Pursuant to the standing committee resolution. But I need a second. And thank you, and maintaining the current membership of those standing subcommittees.
With adding Councilmember Schmidt to mass notification.
And taking Councilmember Schmidt off of me.
Off of what?
I always help you, but I'm really. You cannot put Councilmember Schmidt on everything, sorry.
We can.
Especially if I don't show up at the next meeting.
Okay, so Councilmember Schmidt is going to be on mass notification and not on community outreach, so that's the one realignment.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, just speak slowly and clearly into the camera one more time so that I'll get it when I pick it up on video.
You're gonna make the motion again?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I move that the EPRC adopt the following subcommittees. Community outreach with member Sachdeva as the member responsible for that subcommittee. Medical and environmental health with members Carter and Carney as the members. Town emergency plans with Stewart as the committee member. Mass notification with associate member Katie as the and Councilmember Schmidt as the members on that subcommittee. And emergency communications with members Wood and associate member Katie. I would love to put Gilmore on there, but I don't want to press on it.
Thank you. I think I'm not able to volunteer to do that, but I would informally, of course, I will help in any way I can.
So as so proposed, I would move that the EPRC adopt those subcommittees.
I will second that. Okay, let's go in the middle and go around. Mr. Basiji.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Harder. I just have a list, I'm sorry. Ms. Sachdeva.
Aye.
Mr. Wood.
Aye.
Now we're back at the top, Chair Kearney.
Aye.
And Vice Chair, former Vice Chair Venkis.
Aye.
And media, I'm
Vice
at the
Chair
end here.
Venkis.
Aye. Okay, so that's unanimous, unsurprisingly.
And just so that the record is clear, we are not adopting the DSW groups and programs permanently.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we've discussed a little bit about next meeting's agenda. Actually, we've discussed all of it.
So one thing you left off the agenda is we usually recite the action items for the next meeting.
We can't do that.
It's not on the agenda, okay?
Okay, so
Sorry.
what are the action items for the next agenda?
Good question, Chair. So I am supposed to put the current radio club proposal to the town's website, figure out how to do that so that it becomes public. Lisa has been assigned to come up with a list of questions about emergency notification to direct to Ann and to contact, I guess, Peter about contacting the sheriff's office about this evacuation presentation we're requesting. That's it.
I also have that I'm supposed to put together a proposal for council meeting regarding the whatever we're
The
calling.
the resolution that was approved today.
Okay.
That I don't have to do now, because it's not actually an action item.
Ah,
And there,
And I'm supposed to make a list of mass notifications.
Brilliant.
aren't you glad you have this consulting group all around to help the council figure out what it needs to do?
I have my piece of paper.
And do the minutes need to reflect the meeting between the proposed Ham Club and the EG?
I don't know if the minutes need to do that, but certainly we could add it in.
The minutes should reflect that because we've been talking about that, but I don't know if that's something that needs to be on this list of things
So-
to do.
What I took as a note is what's the relationship between EG and club, between the club and the EPRC and or the town? That Larry, Bill and Neil are club members or driving the club concept. And David is going to work with his emergency group to determine who's going to be the negotiator.
It's pretty complete.
And we'll leave it to them to call their meeting.
Is that a subcommittee of the emergency communications subcommittee?
I hope not.
It's the EG. That's the independent. They have
Yeah.
two clubs.
They're
Okay.
not a club, which is completely different.
Yeah, okay, so what I have on future agendas is the sheriff's office presentation we just talked about. A discussion around testing the town's emergency mass notification systems and revisiting the town ham club. Okay.
Unless
All I
anybody
need
has
now.
anything else, I would move to adjourn this meeting.
Second that.
Perfect.
And someone has to eat that last brownie. Come on, Jim.
I had to.
I can't.
Thank you.
Neil, we're signing off here.
Thank you, Neil.
Bye, everyone.
All right, get in there.
Question, Dave. And then you got the second.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You're building your